Hey y'all, welcome to part two of our conversation with our amazing speaker on the Do the Change podcast. We're going to hop right back into the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify page, and follow us on Instagram at Do the Change Podcast.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, like for me, this is something I struggle with, which is using my networks that I have. And I think partially it's because even at LMU, when they would like push, like you said, LinkedIn, someone worked at LinkedIn that worked at LMU because
I'm
the one
100% convinced.
like I was like, stop talking about LinkedIn. Like it was to the point to where I didn't want to sign up for LinkedIn because they talked about it too much, which
Yeah.
is problematic, but
Yeah.
whatever. That's something I need to learn about. I'll air myself out a bit. But I
Yeah.
think that that's something that I personally struggle with using my networks because for some reason, I don't know internally where I'm like, no, like these are organic connections I made with people. I don't want to feel like I'm like, hey, tap, 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 like help me. Cause you know what I mean? Where it's like, I feel like I just connect with you because I like you, not because I'm like, you know, this person, who know this person, who know this person,
Right.
whatever. But I think that hearing you talk about how like that same network has helped you and is currently helping you is really like made me, even when you're talking, go like, dang, like maybe I should start tapping into that and not feeling as like bad. Like I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna think that I was using them for 5 years and waiting on this moment to say something. Like, you know what I mean? Where even though I'm sure they're like, no, Tyra, I'm glad you asked. It
Yeah.
does kind of feel that way sometimes.
Yeah. It can be daunting. And I think it's also
Yeah.
hard to like talk yourself up because you're trying to like obviously sell yourself about being like a good advocate and like public health professional. But I think yeah, I understand that balance between like wanting to reach out to people but not wanting to be like I'm just using you when I haven't like
Right.
hit you up in like X amount of time, even though we've been suffering as students. um but a lot of these people have been there, and I think even just posting on like a status, what not directed towards anybody, like, and then kind of letting it come to you, I think that's a good way to sort of not have to worry about that fear of like reaching out to someone specifically. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that hopefully for the folks who are listening, that they get some insight on like different ways to find jobs and not just like, yes, applying for jobs, but also like you said on LinkedIn, just being like, hey, this is my resume, this is who I am as a student, this is where I come from, this is the job I'm looking for, and like getting a connection that way, like you just shared. And also sending you good energy for that job you're talking about, good
Thank
positive
you.
vibes. And hopefully by the time this post, you're like, I already got the
I'm
job.
gonna be
Like
like, we need to go back and have a redo so I could talk about that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Just re-record this one section.
I know. I'll wear the same outfit.
Right, yeah. um, okay, and so now we're going to jump into so I guess I'm just gonna jump into it. But you were recently the editor of the Maternal and Child Health National Network. Um, it's like a newsletter, right? From my
Part of
understanding.
it, yeah.
Whatever news.
It's
Okay.
I can't recall how long it's been around for, but it came out of BU, Boston University,
Okay.
and it's basically so MCH National Network, that's Maternal and Child Health National
Mm.
Network.
Yes.
And it came out, yeah, like I said, out of BU, and it's mainly a place for the groups that are part of it are the Center of Excellence maternal child health groups, like their grants through, I believe, HRSA that exist
Mhm.
across the country. So Berkeley has a Center of Excellence, BU has a Center of Excellence. I think other schools have Center of Excellence. There's a good amount of them. So at least like 11 or 13, I think. So, and they're all across the US, but it's definitely an amazing way for people across, state lines to be able to network and learn about, the work happening, in other MCH programs. But my specific role was a co-newsletter manager. I applied for that because one of my roles in my job pre-grad school, I had started doing a newsletter during COVID where I would just accumulate like the fattest list of resources and send them to
Oh,
our um our care team, basically the ones who were interacting with the moms and the families, like our health educators, public health nurses, etc. And
mhm.
that's something I found myself to really enjoy. And I remember actually being told, like when I was younger, I should consider like graphic design when I'm older. And so I've always kind of enjoyed like digitally like editing things like that. So I love a full
Yeah.
circle movement. But so I applied to that, and it's just like an unpaid volunteer position. But I definitely am glad I did it, because it just, gave me more exposure with newsletters, content creation, organizing virtual events, and how much of a struggle it is to try and like recruit and like engage people, like especially online and again across many different states. And I think it was just nice to have a chance to meet like other amazing public health professionals and advocates and hear about the work that they're doing, what they're interested in. Even though I'm in California and intend on staying in this bubble, it's just nice to know like what's happening in other states, especially because there's a lot of other realities that a lot of families experience that are different from the ones here, based on like policies and things as such, that I think are always important to be knowledgeable of.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a tangent because of when you were saying that you also were kind of clued into other maternal health like issues or policies in other states. Is there one, I know this is like impromptu, but is there, I guess, was there a policy or issue that kind of stuck out to you in comparison to, because I know California, in comparison to other states, not that it is the best, I guess, site in regards to maternal health, like protections and policies, but definitely compared to certain states. Texas, I'm looking at you.
I know.
Yeah, but yeah, was there, sorry. I have no beef with folks from Texas, but Texas, the state.
Texas, yes. I'm just picturing like SpongeBob when he was like shaped like Texas, like
yes.
That's right now.
Yes, exactly. So I guess was there anything any policy or issue that you noticed where it kind of stood out to you and maybe shocked you, or was just like, oh, like what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't learn about this specifically from the MCHNN, but just something that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about is there was a recent case following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, where I'm pretty sure a teenager, if not a young adult, like younger than the both of us, her mom took her to get an abortion, I think, across state lines. And then somehow, I don't know like the details of this, but the data like on their phone, I think it was like their Facebook messages, like basically they ended up like getting, I don't know if the word is prosecuted, I don't know, but just a private, I could try and find an article for you. I don't know if you have show notes or something, just, sources. So I could try and find it because I'm not speaking super well about it, but
okay.
I think, point being, like you said, there's still a lot that California has to work on, but it's definitely been referred to as a leader in maternal and child health and the change that needs to happen. And it's definitely considered like a safe haven state when it comes to abortion.
Yes.
And I think I just remember when Roe v. Wade was overturned and like how heavy like my chest felt, even knowing I'm in California, I'll be okay. I have health insurance, I'll be okay. I have like close-knit resources, like I'll be okay, So I can only imagine what it's like in these other states, especially more rural communities, what that sort of panic is like, especially if you're currently pregnant. That's something you were thinking about. And it's like happening like within the same country, it's just crazy how different it is depending on what state you're in. And it's just something that I don't know. It just blows my mind that this is such a debated topic, to put it. Like, that's not the best way to put it, but
it is. It's like controversial, and it's like maternal health and maternal protection so that mothers can have kids safely and so that these kids can enter the world safely, like shouldn't be up for discussion. And like a woman should be able to do what they want with their body because it's their body. It shouldn't be up for discussion. And like I think Kamala Harris brought up a point where she was like, she had asked, I don't remember what the conversation was. There was a whole bunch of other congressmen. And she asked, like, what laws are there in place that police a man's body? Silence, because there isn't one. Yeah, and it's just, it's mind-boggling. And like you said, like I remember when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and I literally like my brother is the youngest and the only boy, so I was like, "Do you understand what just happened?" And he was like, yeah, it was overturned. I'm like, yes, but do you understand like how that impacts me, my sister, and mom? Like, do you get that? And he was just like, well, like I've heard some things, but I'm not quite sure. So literally sat down, had a conversation about like, this is what Roe v. Wade did. This is how it's being interpreted, and this is how it's affecting us. And he was just like, oh, it's just like, oh, it's just scary. It's just a scary time.
It's scary that this like happened. Like we were able to witness this happen. And the
Yes.
fact it was even a priority. And I think another thing I want to say is the fact that, there's this push to force like women and birthing people to have children, but then it's like, let's not expand Medicaid. Let's not, when there was the formula shortage happening, like there was like, no, we're not going to do anything about that. It's like, what are you doing then to help people have safe and like sustainable like abilities to be able to raise their kids? But like they don't do that. Not that if they were doing that, it would be okay, but it's like,
it's just
hypocrisy. I'm like
the full, like the life cycle of a child is not just in the mother's womb, it's outside of it. And outside is not looking too good right now for kids. So it's just like, and anyways, this is a great transition into tea time with Tyra. Please have a topic
I love
to talk
it.
about. Yes, and I see you already have your mug. I don't know if there's tea in it, but it's close enough. Yes, we love. All I have is like chocolate milk. This is funny.
I've been craving chocolate milk for like the longest time.
I feel like I'm like healing my inner child by drinking chocolate milk, but whatever.
You know what? Yeah, like I said, I've been craving it, so no judgment whatsoever.
See, this is why me and you are like, this is why we get. Okay, so first question is, looking back on where you are now, if you could go back and tell your younger self some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I already talked about what my high school journey was like, but bringing that back up, I think I would tell myself, being a teenager is so hard, and the amount of pressure that's put on kids that age, like literal children, like something I always talk about to my friends is it like blows my mind that people, they graduate from high school like 17 or 18 and like move across the country, to go to school. Like props to you, but I'm like, that is insane. That is insane to me. And the amount of pressure that's put on literal children to have it all figured out when like there's so much more to see, it's just awful and it needs to change. But I bring that up because I just remember how helpless I felt in high school about finding my path and like something that I'm good at and am passionate about. And I put so much pressure on myself, and I also had pressure around me, obviously. But I think I would just tell myself, this time in your life feels like it's the biggest deal, but it's such a small part of your life.
Yeah.
And all these, crushes on boys and like school dances and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's such a small fraction of your life, and there's so much more to come. And also that it's okay if you don't have it all figured out right now. Like, even just between like beginning of grad school and like end of grad school, like I've changed so much, let alone like undergrad to now. Like, it's just, you're constantly evolving. And I think I wish I could go back and tell myself that, because high school was brutal.
Girl, I totally agree. Yeah, high school is rough. I literally moved schools in the middle of high school, so I was in a whole new environment. And I was like, literally my approach in high school, which I don't know if it was the best approach, but it was like, I'm just here to go to college. Like I don't like it's really sad, but it was like the only friends that I really had aside the sprinkle of people who I met in class. It was like, if they weren't on my volleyball team, I didn't know you. And I didn't make an effort to get to know you. So I'm like, I'm not even gonna like see you guys after 2 years. Like, there's no guarantee we're going to college together. And so high school was just rough, where I was just like, I'm just here to get the grades I need to get to where I want to get to. And it was sad sometimes. So I was like, dang, like if my volleyball friends aren't available, I'm like, I'm like,
what am I gonna do?
Yeah. But I feel, I mean, I feel like if I would tell, if I could go back in time, I'd also tell myself that, because definitely like comparison is a thief of joy. And I totally was like, I should have this and this and this and this. And then I was like, but I'm not there. Something's wrong with me. And it's just like the amount of like, and then also like hearing stories from our parents where the life was a lot easier and cheaper to do things. Or my mom was like, graduated at 17, had her own place by 18. That's because it was cheaper. And she was also, yeah. My mom is that story where I was like, okay, mom, like, we get it. So, but it was just a different time where like now you can't do that. And I think now having conversations with my mom about that, I think now she's more understanding of like, yeah, actually it's not fair to expect y'all to have your own place or whatever. But yeah, I think I would also tell like my younger self that like, don't dim your light for others. I would dim my light for other people. And then that would slow me down on whatever journey I was supposed to be on. And it took me until literally grad school to be like, actually, no, you're not going to dim my light. And if you are, you're going to have to work real hard for it.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely resonate with that. It's like, I'm going to like what I like. I'm going to act how I want.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to, etc. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, okay. So I feel like the second question I was going to ask, I feel like we kind of already talked about. So I'm going to skip to, oh, actually, we kind of already talked about all these seats. I'll just skip to the last one where it says,
No, me and my tangents. I'm like, we're going to cover everything.
no, but it's perfect because you know what? The tangents were needed, and I love tangents, so I'm never going to say no to a tangent because I do tangents.
Thank goodness. I'll be back then because this was therapy. I'm like, therapy
seriously.
expensive. Podcast with Tyra, priceless.
I'm serious. Okay, so next question is, how important is it for individuals from underrepresented racial or ethnic backgrounds to see folks who look like them, particularly in the field of maternal health, but feel free if it's just in general, and then maybe paternal health, whatever you feel like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's been obviously the past few years a big shift in the way in like, you know, representation and like both this like leadership positions and like film and media. Like my roommate and I in Berkeley would always talk about how crazy it is to see the different, you know, representation there is like in Disney movies now. And I'm like, I can't imagine like if I like grew up having that. It's like crazy how in such a short amount of time it is like evolved. But I think something that a lot of people still don't understand when it comes to representation is like, it's not just about, you know, what your appearance is. Like, I'm definitely like, that's definitely so important. But I think it's also, you know, what ideas do you have and how are you willing to like challenge and change things for the better? Because I think just because you put like a person of color in like a leadership position, it's like, okay, like look at what we did, you know, like they're there now. But if they're just going to continue the same old, it's kind of like, how far does that really go? So I think representation needs to do a lot more. And I think in terms of maternal and child health, like statistics show that when Black women have a Black physician when they're giving birth, like they're going to have better outcomes. And I think that says a lot. But there's also situations which even happened with April Valentine here in LA where she did everything quote unquote right. She had a doula. She was preparing for her childbirth, but she still passed away. And she also had a Black woman physician, you know, who was taking care of her. And I think that just goes to my point about how just the appearance isn't enough. But I think it's also simultaneously like, it shouldn't just be up to, you know, like people of color to like resolve all these issues. It's like, we have to like all come together, you know? So it's like finding that balance, that way the burden isn't just, you know, on them to, you know, resolve like all the issues that, you know, white men created. So it's like finding that balance is hard. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, but hopefully we'll keep moving in that direction. And I think also learning when it's time to like listen or speak up, like
Right.
is also a balance that people need to find in terms of when they're in certain spaces.
Yeah, and I think I want to add to like your point about like representation and just like it's not just like the face of like, look, we have a Black person, look, we have a like Latinx person, Asian person. And it's like, I feel like sometimes there's like two different understandings of words depending on what group is saying it, where it's like people call it race of representation. We are talking about the all-encompassing parts of representation
Right.
for the most part of like, you look like me, you also understand what like our communities go through and what we're going up against and stuff like that. Or like you have not perfect understanding, but you are grounded in some type of understanding that is like compassionate and understanding of someone who looks like you. And then sometimes with the folks who have been centered for a long time, white people, specifically white men in the field of healthcare, representation to them might just mean, look, Black person, look,
Yeah.
like it's all good. And it's just like, no, like, no, like, yes, but no, like that's like a small piece of the full puzzle, like you were sharing. Um, and I do think where it's like, it could be something as little as like the Black Mermaid, like Ariel, like that was super. I remember I told my friend, I was like, I cried when I saw Ariel. Cause like to me, I'm like, grew up seeing the white Ariel cartoon. Great. The lady was a great singer, did a great job with the story. But then just like seeing yourself or like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, there's all these little kids, like Black kids around me and like their mermaid costume. And that's what really like made me cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, their first Ariel is this Ariel. Like imagine. And I remember I was like, to my friend, I was crying. She's like, I don't know if I would cry if I saw the mermaid. I'm like, well, it's a little bit different because we're
It's different. Yeah.
like I'm like I mean it's just anyways it's just like that just means something deeper to community members. And like and I also think even the actor when she was talking about, she cried when she got the role because she thought she couldn't do it because it's been traditionally done by white women. And so it's something like that, in addition to then seeing how good of a job she did. And it was just like, oh, like you did it justice. Like you did exactly what needed to be done. And then I get that exact same feeling when I see like folks from like different communities of color going into these healthcare fields and like doing the thing. Like you just went in there and did what needed to be done. But like you said, it shouldn't fully be on those community members to do the right thing. It needs to be a collective effort. But sometimes I think the understanding of like, well, the only people who best understand communities of color experience is community of color. So let's make them do it. And it's just like, no, we are not
It's so much
caretakers.
more than that. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's really important to me, especially coming into, the maternal health space, especially when it comes to Black maternal health equity and reproductive justice. Like me, one, being someone who doesn't identify as Black, I'm Latina, both sides of my family are Cuban, but and I've had my own experiences because of that, especially growing up in a predominantly white, like affluent neighborhood, but not, being able to recognize the privileges I've grown up in because of my zip code. And then I have a lot of other people who are also Latino, Latinx, who I haven't had the same experiences as. And I just really find that's why I brought up the point about realizing when it's time to like speak up versus just sit back. Finding that balance is just super important, and not wanting to take up that space when you're in that room, so that's just something that's really important to me, that I really value, that I wish other people understood. But it's like, I don't even know how you teach that, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I've been lucky with the spaces that I've been able to be in because of my work experience in grad school, and then just where I kind of intentionally wanted to navigate myself. But yeah, representation still has a long way to go. And I like the point you brought up about community members, because yes, I may have like some 3 capital letters at the end of my name now, but I'm still not an expert of anyone else's lived experience. Like that's why having community input is so important. But like, what infrastructure do you have in place to support them to be able to do that work? Because burnout is real. Especially like in terms of maternal health. Like I know a lot of birth workers who are just exhausted. and just aren't getting the support that they need and deserve.
Yeah.
So hopefully things continue to change. I'm very nervous with the election be next year because I'm like, are we fed up yet? Because I thought we were a long time ago, but we clearly are not. So I'm like, please, like for a minute I have hope, especially with our generation, because clearly
Yes.
we're one of like the most, for lack of better words, progressive liberal generations.
Yes.
But still, I'm like, there's
Yes,
still
no.
a lot of questionable stuff out there. So we'll see. I'm very nervous about it, given what happened a couple years ago with the last election.
Child, and
So,
what's happening now? No,
what's
you
happening
can't,
now?
right? It's
I'm like,
no.
can we like wake up a little bit, please?
Just,
But people like to, exist in their bubble and,
yeah.
do what they want. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I'm nervous.
Yes. I mean, nervous is a very good word, because nervous is how I'm feeling about it, where I'm like, I'm seeing like people getting it, but I need you to then act on
Yeah,
you getting it. And
sure.
that's where it gets a little dicey with all generations, to be honest. And then with all the behind the scenes political like gerrymandering that they're doing, and
Yeah, and like voter suppression.
voter suppression.
There's been a lot of dialogue lately about like term limits.
Yes. For
Like
older, yeah, for the older folks. Yeah.
oh my God. I just saw what happened with Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Like, it's no disrespect, but also a little disrespect, like of like, sorry, like no disrespect of like, because it's like no disrespect is like part of like, I guess, my just culturally raised to respect elders, but also
Elders, yeah.
disrespect of like, you need to leave. Like,
Yeah.
it's like there should be some rule of, if you are more than XYZ generations away from the current generation, that's your last term, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
go.
Because it's like all these decisions you're making, you're not gonna be around to like see the outcomes
Exactly.
of. But
Exactly.
of course, they have to stay in power and protect America and blah 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 blah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
but it's like,
complicated. I'm like, why does it have to be like this? Yeah.
right.
Anyways.
So sadly, we are coming to a close of this amazing conversation. But I also just want to thank you for being here, for being open. Open. I don't know what opus means, but it means
another word you're gonna, copyright. Like,
oh, right. At this point, I got two.
yeah.
So thank you for being open and honest with me, and also the folks who are listening. I'm more than certain they got some gems and really cool insight, and definitely some inspo on just how to navigate grad school, post grad, and then just thinking through some things that are going on in the maternal health field and politics as a current, because I'm gonna keep on saying current because I'm putting that in your life and in your spirit. Current policy advocate, so period. And so I want to end with some questions about self-care. And also, if you have any closing thoughts or advice that you want to give to our listeners, feel free. So the first question is, are there any books, podcasts, wink, wink, I'm just kidding, and organizations that you recommend to folks just in general that you found helpful?
Yeah. I feel I definitely want to shout out, this isn't related to self-care, but I want to shout out an initiative here in LA County called the AIM Initiative. That is short for the African American Infant and Maternal Mortality Initiative. It's an amazing group of primarily Black women leading that effort. They've been around, I think, since 2018, 2019. And I've learned a lot through them. I've been lucky enough to work with them. They had a policy roll out because of their work called the AIM Doula program. They're continuing to expand, and they exist all throughout LA County. So I definitely think people should keep up with them on social media. They're always doing virtual events to engage with community and talk about the importance of this work and this issue that exists and should not exist, for lack of better words. I'm trying to wrap up instead of having a tangent, but yes, everyone check them out. In terms of books, I am trying to get better at reading. Me just scrolling on social media, trying to not do that, but TikTok just has me in a chokehold. But what book did I read recently? I can't remember, so I shouldn't have even brought that up. But yes, everyone look at the AIM Initiative. Again, I don't know if you do show notes, but I could send you all of that. And so we love a hyperlink. Yes.
Okay, cool. I think I'll add a book that I haven't finished it, which is low-key going against the name of the book itself. It's called The Power of Now, and I definitely stopped. but but
Please
it's good.
stopped.
But it's good. It's called like literally just like when you think of something that you need to do and you're like, oh, I'll do it later. No, do it now, because what's stopping the same amount of minutes is going to pass, right? But then I stopped reading that book and I was like, like,
Yeah, like I'm not taking their advice.
I was like, but when I did read it, I felt empowered.
I should read that because I've gotten better. Like something I'll tell myself is like if I have to do something, as whether it's like applying for a job or like just doing my skincare routine, I'm like, Gabby, are you going to want to do it any more later than you will right now? So
Right.
just like get it over with.
Right.
But yeah, it's a real struggle. Procrastination is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
I appreciate the book recommendation since I couldn't think of one off the top of my head.
No, I'm literally saying that because that was a book where I was like, I left it at my mom's house and I was like, dang, I'm supposed to take it with me. Guess I didn't do it when I wanted to. So I didn't
When I get those questions, I just like forget. It's like when people ask me your favorite song or movie, I'm like, I just forgot every song or movie that ever existed. Like
with the whole playlist titled favorite songs, forgot.
Yeah, like I don't listen to music. Like I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like what? Okay, last question. What are some daily or weekly self-care routines or habits that you have incorporated into your life?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to get back into that. I actually worked out for the first time in like weeks this morning. Because I was doing a pretty good job in July, but then I moved and then came back home and like everything's messy and like chaotic. But I tried to do that. It was just for 20 minutes and it was like low impact, but I think I just tell myself that something is better than nothing.
Yes.
And I'm trying to tell myself that with other habits I want to incorporate into my day, whether it's, reading, just moving my body in some way. Like I used to expect myself to be like, okay, work out for like 30 minutes or like an hour, like on the treadmill, like these unrealistic goals. And I've definitely gotten a lot better at, just being like, just start small and like, work your way up and like, it's better than nothing. So I'm trying to put those back into my routine, little by little. So hopefully I continue to make progress.
Yeah. And I love that you're being kind to yourself while you're doing it, where you're like, something's better than nothing. At least I'm doing like something little, and being kind to yourself is also how you build those habits over time. So
yeah, it's been a journey to accept that.
Yeah.
Especially with working out, or like I like to call it moving my body because working out just sounds too intimidating. Like I just want to move my body,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
That's for the next podcast episode.
Wait, I have to send you because I'm going to be working remote, or because I am currently working remote, like the movement thing is so real. But I found this girl, she choreographs like very short 10-15 minute movement like things to like your favorite songs or like your favorite mashups or like TikTok, whatever stuff. I'm gonna have to send it to you because those moves were fun. I was like, yes, this is the exact movement I thought I would do.
I know, yeah. And it's like nothing like you're not doing like planks or whatever. You're like moving your arms. Like
no, yeah, you're just like dancing. You're like, yeah, like I was sitting in my house. I said, this I can get behind.
Yeah, please send, because I love those types of videos. Like it's like, let's make this more exciting,
Yes, yes. Well, I'm so sad to leave because like I love talking to you. So I just want to say again, thank you for coming on this podcast, and thank you to the folks who are listening. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, thanks for coming, Gabby. We love and appreciate you for being here and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And hopefully everyone got through, again, my tangents.
It's all good. Alrighty. Bye.